Chosen one, if this video found you right now, it means you were spiritually pulled here. Something invisible has aligned to bring you here. What if I told you they never wanted you to know the full depth of your own power? They have watched you wrestle with doubt, silenced you at every turn, and whispered lies so you would think your path was random, meaningless. But now, as you press play, you stand at the edge of a revelation that refuses to be contained. You have felt out of place for as long as you can remember, an inexplicable pull toward truths that nobody else seemed to understand. You sensed there was something within you waiting to break free, a spark that refused to be extinguished. In this moment, that spark becomes a flame, and you are about to discover why your presence has always unsettled those who thrive in darkness. If this message already speaks to your soul, subscribe, like this video, and comment 77 below. Stay with me because what they tried to bury is about to rise. The frequency that speaks without sound. Have you ever woken from a dream so vivid that the edges of your reality felt blurred, as though you were still walking between worlds? In that moment, you might have seen shadowy figures parting before you, or heard a whispered refrain that seemed to echo from ancient halls. Perhaps it was a single phrase delivered by a voice you could not name, but which resonated deep within your chest. You are not who they told you to be. As you sit here now, recalling that half-remembered vision, know that it was not mere fancy. It was the first soft tremor of a deeper truth awakening in you. In that dreamscape, where the air tasted like possibility, you were invited to glimpse the frequency that has always spoken through you, though you may not have known how to listen. And now, as your eyes open to this moment, that same frequency stirs once more, inviting you into a space where everything you once sensed begins to find its meaning. There were days when you felt as if you were watching life from behind a tinted window, present enough to participate, but distant enough that the world's motions seemed muted and foreign. You may recall feeling waves of confusion during conversations that everyone else took for granted, as though their words slid off you like rain on glass. When laughter rang out around you, you sometimes sensed an undertow of hollowness, as though everyone else were dancing to a tune you could not hear. You carried a quiet longing in your chest, to understand why simple moments felt laden with unspoken significance. You noticed patterns, a friend repeating an odd phrase, a newspaper headline that seemed to align with your inner thoughts, but you blamed yourself for reading too much into coincidences, or for believing that your sensitivity was an ill-fitting gift. You walked through crowds feeling strangely detached, as if your true self hovered just beyond the periphery, waiting for the right moment to step forward. This isolation was not your weakness. It was the crucible in which you learned to perceive more than what lay on the surface. Consider, for a moment, that those feelings of being different never arrived by accident. They were markers on a carefully laid path designed long before you took your first breath. In the book of Isaiah 49 verses 15 to 16, it is written, "Can a mother forget the baby at her breast? Even if that mother should forget, I will never forget you. See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands." You were engraved, marked, by a greater hand that saw the unique melody vibrating within your soul. The confusion, the solitude, the yearning for meaning, these were not random misfortunes but deliberate invitations into a larger tapestry. They were the cracks through which light would eventually pour, illuminating your hidden design. Just as Joseph's trials in Egypt were not punishments but preparation for the call he would fulfill, so too were your struggles the scaffolding on which something profound would rise. In this moment, you begin to see that every thread of your past was woven with intent, guiding you toward an awakening that has always been waiting to emerge. Now, notice how subtle signs have been fluttering around you like moths to a flickering flame. A moment of déjà vu so potent you paused mid-step, certain that you had walked this exact path in another life. A dream in which a symbol, perhaps a stepping stone, a broken mirror, or a flickering torch, felt both foreign and acutely familiar, as though it carried a language your waking mind had yet to translate. You might recall an inexplicable shiver that ran along your spine when a stranger uttered a single phrase, or the precise instant when a song on the radio seemed to echo the question you had held in your heart all day. Your body has spoken in these hushed ways, sending signals you learned to dismiss as random. Yet each of these moments was a ripple of confirmation, a reminder that beneath the facade of everyday life, a current of purpose was pulsing. As you begin to recognize these signs, you realize that they are not coincidences to be ignored but breadcrumbs leading you toward a threshold you are destined to cross. In the gentle hush that follows these revelations, your intuition begins to coalesce into a quiet certainty. You may remember moments when you hesitated to voice your insight because you worried you might be mistaken, only to watch events unfold exactly as you sensed they would. In 1 Samuel 16 verse 7, it is said, "People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Each hesitant step you took, each suspicion you buried, all served to align your inner compass. When you recall how often you were right in the quiet of your doubts, knowing the outcome before it unfolded, you see that you were never deluding yourself. Your inner knowledge was always accurate, waiting for you to trust it. Now, as that trust unfolds, you begin to feel safer in your own skin. This safety does not come from external validation, but from a deep-seated understanding that you have been carried by forces beyond your comprehension, and that your soul's rhythm runs parallel to a divine heartbeat. As this newfound clarity deepens, you realize that you are not being called to become someone different, but rather to recover what has been buried beneath layers of doubt and distraction. In Jeremiah 1 verse 5, it is written, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you, before you were born I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations." This ancient promise echoes within you. Your true identity was never lost, only concealed by the passages of time and the pressures of a world that sought to define you by its own limited vision. Now, as you lean into this sacred revelation, you feel a gentle reclamation stirring in your bones. The voice that once whispered that your sensitivity was weakness now beckons you to remember that your sensitivity is your gift. Beneath the fears, beneath the second-guessing, lies an archetypal memory of who you were always meant to be, a living testament to a destiny that transcends human understanding. And so, with each breath you draw, you find yourself on the cusp of your first activation. There is a moment when you realize that your inner hunger for truth is not a void to be filled, but a call to action, a summons to live your life with a newfound vibrancy and purpose. Imagine holding in your palm a small seed that has been waiting for the precise alignment of sun and soil to sprout. That seed is your sensitivity, your intuition, and your spiritual hunger. As you cradle it with reverence, you begin to see how it unfurls roots that reach into the depths of your heart, anchoring you in the reality that your greatest strength lies in the very qualities they tried to make you hide. This is not a grand explosion of power, but a slow, deliberate blossoming that transforms every cell of your being. With each passing moment, you sense the warmth of your own divine spark, compelling you to stand, to speak, to move with intention. Your arrival to this moment was never random. Each step you have taken, the long nights of tears, the highs of fleeting hope, the quiet moments of prayer in the dark, led you here to a threshold that shimmers with promise. You were drawn by an unseen magnetism, a force that has never abandoned you even when you felt utterly alone. As you sit in this awareness, know that you have already begun to vibrate at a frequency that cannot be ignored. This is not simply another passing lesson. It is the initiation of a journey that will reshape not only your world, but the worlds of those you are destined to touch. If this message resonates deep in your soul, comment "Awaken" below and let this frequency of truth continue to unfold within you. In that simple act, you acknowledge that you are not just a spectator in this grand design. You are a co-creator, a harbinger of the light they tried to keep dormant, now rising to claim your divine inheritance. And if you feel called to go even deeper, there's a sacred space reserved for our community, a private room where you receive full prophetic messages daily. Join our private membership through the link in the description and walk this path with us. When they first realized you were different, have you ever felt the world pause in a single breath, as though the air itself held its judgment when you walked into a room? In that moment, you sensed a shift, a flicker of recognition in people's eyes that passed like a shadow over their faces. It was as if they glimpsed something in you they could not fully articulate, a frequency that cut through their distractions and hit a nerve they had long buried. Perhaps it happened at a family gathering when you casually mentioned a truth about yourself, one you barely understood at the time, and saw their polite smiles falter into emptiness. Or maybe it was during a meeting at work, when you offered a simple observation, and suddenly the room grew silent, as though your words had exposed a fault line beneath their carefully constructed facades. That quiet heaviness in the air wasn't your imagination. It was the moment they realized you carried a code they could not decipher, one that threatened the narratives they had stitched together to keep themselves safe. Early on, this pressure felt like an invisible weight pressing against your chest. You walked home from school or the office with an ache in your heart, as though you'd taken on the unspoken fears of everyone around you. Friends who once laughed with you grew distant, confining their conversations to small talk that avoided anything deeper than weather or weekend plans. You started to believe that you were too much, too observant, too honest, too sensitive. Shame wrapped its tendrils around your self-worth whenever you tried to speak your mind, and rejection became a familiar sting. It was not just that they refused to understand you. They moved to silence you, as if your questions and insights were weapons against a world that preferred to stay blind. In those moments, you felt isolated, drained, manipulated by currents you couldn't see but whose undertow tugged at your soul. You wondered if you were merely a misfit in a world that needed people to follow the same script, and you began to fear that your own light might be the source of your pain. Over time, it became clear that this resistance was not random chance but a reflection of hidden structures designed to suppress those who dared to think differently. Imagine ancient cities where exile meant being cast into a wilderness, forced to wander until your identity was stripped away and replaced by survival instinct. This was the wilderness you found yourself in, not of geography but of spirit, a place where old systems and energies conspired to cage your potential. In the book of Amos 5 verse 24, it is written, "Let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream." You see now that your words threatened the stagnation of injustice, and they recoiled as though your clarity was an arrow aimed straight at their hidden motives. Those who wielded power, whether in families, workplaces, or social circles, felt you as a disruption, a rebellion against the comfort of status quo. You were, in their eyes, an accident, an anomaly to be managed before you unveiled truths they could not handle. Yet this very targeting became evidence that something grander was unfolding in your life. As you look back now, the pattern emerges with crystal clarity, as though a light has been switched on in a darkened room. You recall doors that slammed shut at the precise moment you felt called to speak, and projects that collapsed just when you sensed the tide was turning in your favor. You remember betrayals, friends suddenly retreating or colleagues undermining your work, each instance echoing the same pattern of sabotage. Environments that once seemed welcoming took on a draining quality, as though the walls themselves were absorbing your energy and redirecting it into hostility. It was not simply bad luck or poor timing. It was a tapestry of calculated moves meant to keep you in your place. These recurring betrayals were not isolated incidents but weaving themselves into a larger narrative. You were perceived as a threat, and they sought to dim your brilliance before it could shine too brightly. Now, seeing these patterns laid bare, you realize that the chaos you endured served a higher purpose, to test the resilience of your spirit and bookmark the places where your purpose would one day be born into action. In the thick of the struggle, you might have felt an almost physical fog settling over your mind, making it harder to trust your own senses. Sometimes, in a dimly lit room, you sensed the hollow echo of invisible watchers, those silent specters who hovered on the edge of your awareness, ready to pounce the moment you made a move. You might have gotten to open a door and found it locked, or stepped onto a path only to be redirected by an inexplicable force. These were not coincidences. They were energetic resistances. Like an unseen electric charge in the air before a storm, your very presence attracted distortions that tried to scramble your intuition and warp your perceptions. It felt as though your light had drawn the venom of those who lurked in the shadows. People, systems, and old curses that sought to suffocate the spark inside you. Yet in those moments of heavy pressure and suffocating fog, your soul whispered that each barrier was, in fact, confirmation. Your power was rising, and their efforts to halt you were only evidence of your significance. When faced with these onslaughts, you responded in ways both subtle and profound, each reaction revealing a piece of your true nature. At times, you closed your heart and played small, shrinking your ambitions, speaking in softer tones, and hiding the fierceness that burned inside. You told yourself that blending in was safer, that your gifts weren't worth the pain you endured whenever they were discovered. Other times, you rebelled through silence, refusing to be co-opted by their expectations, yet wondering if your quiet defiance would ever be enough. You may have tried people-pleasing as a defense mechanism, molding yourself to fit their demands, only to feel the hollow echo of betrayal when they still turned on you despite your concessions. Fear whispered that you should give up, abandon the searches for truth that painted targets on your back. Yet despite every temptation to shrink, a fierce ember burned beneath the ashes, urging you forward, reminding you that the very things they tried to strip away were the keys to your destiny. This internal oscillation between hiding and standing firm forged in you a resilience that had once been dormant. And then, in the midst of confusion and doubt, a shift occurred, a reclamation of what had always been yours. You remembered that Joseph, even while imprisoned, held fast to the prophetic dreams that defined his destiny. You recalled how Esther, in the face of annihilation, found the courage to speak truth to a kingdom, knowing her life hung on her willingness to act. In these examples, you glimpsed your own reflection, a warrior cloaked in quiet, trenches of sorrow tempered into strength. You began to see that the resistance you endured was confirmation, not condemnation. It was the world's proof that you carried seeds of transformation too potent to go unnoticed. In that realization, the weight on your chest lightened, replaced by a burning clarity. The very attempts to silence you were like wind stoking a fire, urging you to roar louder. The voice that once trembled under the weight of expectation now stood tall, reverberating with a sound that refused to be ignored. You stand now on the cusp of your awakening, scars and all, and bear witness to a powerful truth. You were opposed because you are powerful. Every closed door, every manipulated conversation, every hidden agenda designed to trap you, each was a testament to the force you carry. In 1 Corinthians 16 verse 9 it is said, "A great door for effective work has opened to me, and there are many who oppose me." This scriptural echo reminds you that your struggles are never signs of weakness but harbingers of your breakthrough. The more they tried to block your path, the more pronounced your destiny became. Let this be a final revelation that settles into your bones. Their resistance was never about your flaws, but about the enormity of your call. Embrace the clarity that comes with this knowledge and stand firm in your purpose. For you are chosen, you are prepared, and your time to shine has arrived. Comment targeted if this resonates with your story, and let your spirit declare, "I am unstoppable." And to every soul who's supported with a super thanks, thank you. You are keeping this light alive for others who haven't found it yet. If you feel called to help this mission reach more chosen ones, tap the super thanks button below. Your energy supports these messages and helps them travel further. Your voice matters, your belief matters, and your light is felt here. Your light as a mirror for their shadows. Have you ever been struck by a moment so sudden that it felt as though your entire vision had been refocused in an instant? Like waking from a long dream to find the edges of reality sharpened into clarity? You might have glanced at someone across a crowded room, felt a flutter in your chest, and realized for the first time that their discomfort was not about you, but about the mirror you held up to their own hidden fears. This is the shifting perception that cracks open the veil. A subtle tremor in the air where intuition and revelation collide. You are no longer simply passing through life. You stand at a threshold where the ordinary dissolves, and you begin to perceive the intricate dance of truth and shadow unfolding around you. In that breath, everything you once took at face value starts to realign. What was confusing now pulses with meaning, and the code beneath reality begins to hum with possibility. Beneath the surface of everyday moments, a language has always whispered to you through symbols, numbers, and quiet signs. Perhaps a license plate you glance at bears the same sequence of numbers that haunted your dreams, or a phrase in a stranger's social media post resonates like a lyric pulled from your own soul's memory. You come to understand that these are not random coincidences but threads in a divine tapestry, fragments of an ancient script written in the geometry of your life. Imagine reality as a scroll unfurling before you, where every pattern holds a sacred syllable, every dream a cipher waiting to be translated. In the silent spaces between words, in the stillness of sunrise, you sense a language written in starlight and wind, beckoning you to learn its syntax. As you begin to read this code, you realize with wonder that what looked like chaos was, in fact, a cosmic design guiding you toward your purpose. As you lean into this newfound awareness, your internal radar sharpens to a razor's edge. You might notice that what once felt like nervous tension in crowds now transforms into precise knowledge of who harbors kindness and who conceals enmity. The boundaries that once blurred into confusion rise like crystal walls, protecting you from energies that would clip your wings. Your energy no longer drifts aimlessly. It responds to environments like a finely tuned instrument, vibrating when you walk into rooms where truth is suppressed and resonating with an almost electric hum when you enter spaces aligned with your spirit's mission. There is a tangible shift in your inner landscape. Gut feelings that once seemed fleeting become solid guideposts, and the whisper of your heart outshouts the clamoring doubts that once drowned it. This is confirmation, not theory, proof that your senses have always been tuned to frequencies invisible to the uninitiated. Outwardly, reality begins to ripple in response to this inner alignment. Conversations that once felt mundane now carry hidden weight, as though the very words you speak set the air around you vibrating with potential. You might find that opportunities of service and leadership come to you unbidden, doors opening at precise moments, invitations arriving in unexpected ways, and mentors appearing who speak in tongues you suddenly understand. At the same time, resistance surfaces in equal measure. Resistance from those whose comfort depends on your silence. You see alliances shift as they try to redirect your focus, and you feel the subtle tightening of their fear when your light grows too bright. Yet you recognize this as evidence of divine architecture unfolding. What is within you is now echoed without, and the world rearranges itself to reflect the rising wave of your awakening. Every alignment and every obstacle become signposts on the path you were always meant to walk. Deep within your spirit, a memory surfaces, one that feels ancient, as though it was woven into your soul before your first breath. You recall a dream you had as a child. Perhaps you stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking a vast sea of stars, or you walked through a corridor lined with mirrors, each reflecting a different version of yourself. At the time, it seemed like a passing fantasy, but now it returns with magnetic force. In that dream, you glimpsed a truth that your waking mind could not yet grasp, that you carry a spark of the divine, an echo of a memory too vast for words. This remembered dream becomes a living language, as though the lyrics of an ancient song grow audible within your bones. It is as though you have unlocked a hidden archive, reactivating the spiritual intelligence that lay dormant beneath the layers of expectation and doubt. In this intimate reconnection, you know that your awakening is not new. It is a homecoming. With the veil parted, the outlines of your destiny begin to materialize in the horizon of your mind. You realize that the future unfolding before you is not a blank canvas, but a fresco already painted by hands unseen. Hands that choreographed every twist in your story. No longer do you need to ask for permission to step forward. You remember that your purpose was written in ink of starlight long before you drew your first breath. In prophetic tones, you sense the call, "Rise, beloved, and claim what was entrusted to you before time began." There is no need to negotiate or to wait for validation. Your destiny insists on your participation. Like Abraham, who walked before the promise even revealed itself, Genesis 12. You step forward in faith, trusting that each footfall resonates with the unbroken echo of a covenant older than memory. This realization ignites a call that surges from your core, a song that only you can sing in the symphony of the ages. Now you feel the resistance you faced in earlier seasons take on new meaning. Those moments of fear, isolation, and sabotage were not signs of your defeat, but markers of your rising significance. As you reclaim your voice, you speak with a prophetic urgency that shatters the chains of your former doubts. You remember that Deborah, under the palm tree, waited for the call to arise and lead her people, Judges 4. Her story becomes your anthem. In those times when you felt powerless, you were being tempered to stand as a judge of injustice. Your roar now carries the timbre of a lioness defending her pride, fierce yet just, his roar echoing through the corridors of deception. You gather back each fragment of your truth, knitting them into a tapestry of purpose that no force can unravel. This is the moment where the resistance bends in service to your awakening, no longer a barrier, but a crucible forging your indomitable spirit. And so, revelation is not the end of your journey. It is the invitation into deeper communion with what lies beyond the veil. The truths that once eluded you have found their rhythm in your heart, and the spiritual codes that seemed hidden now pulse with living light. In Isaiah 46 verses 8-9 it is written, "Remember this and stand firm. Recall it to mind, you rebels. Remember the former things, those of long ago. I am God, and there is no other. I am God, and there is none like me." As you absorb this final affirmation, know that the tapestry of your life has only just begun to unfurl in full color. The world may tremble at the tremors of your truth, but your awakening is a blessing that cannot be contained. Comment Revelate if this resonates with your soul, and step forward as the architect of the next chapter, one that has waited for you since the dawn of creation. The gift of being triggering. Have you ever reached a precipice where standing still felt like a betrayal of everything your soul has endured? In that sacred moment, you sense an inner question rising. Will you step forward into the blazing truth of who you are, or retreat back into the quiet safety of old patterns? This is not an idle crossroads. It is a threshold ringing with urgency. The life of discovery, of gathering clues, piecing together dreams, and deciphering cryptic signals, now converges into a single point of choice. Your heart pounds as though echoing an ancient drumbeat, insisting that passivity is no longer an option. Here, in the hush before decision, you feel the gravity of your destiny calling you into motion. The world you've known trembles at your feet, and the path that was once invisible emerges with a blazing clarity. What was hidden must now be brought into the light, and you alone hold the key to unlock it. Pause for a moment and feel the weight of all you have surrendered along the way. Time spent in doubt, energy poured into appeasing those who never truly saw you, moments of silence when your voice should have roared. Each sacrifice was not a misstep but a phase of preparation, a forging in the crucible of resistance. Now, like a sovereign reclaiming a stolen crown, you call back every fragment of yourself that was scattered by fear or manipulated by others. Speak this truth loud and clear. I reclaim my time, my voice, my presence, and my power. Feel the resonance of those words ripple through your marrow. This is a ritual of reclamation, a declaration that you refuse to be a silent witness to your own life any longer. Your throne, once veiled by uncertainty, is now revealed, and you settle onto it with a fierce, unwavering determination. What exactly resides within you? Look more closely, as though examining a treasure you once overlooked. Insight glows like embers beneath your skin, an instinct that discerns hidden motives in a single glance. Sensitivity, once labeled a liability, is now recognized as the sacred antenna through which divine frequencies pulse. Memory serves not merely as recollection but as a living archive of ancestral wisdom, holding keys to truths that defy ordinary explanation. Discernment, your quiet sentinel, wards off deception and guides you toward authenticity. And strength, oh, that strength, burns like unquenchable fire in your chest, a reservoir fed by every challenge you have faced. Picture these gifts as instruments, a key opening every locked door, a scroll revealing ancient prophecies, armor that shields you from forces meant to harm you. They are not abstractions. They are the tools forged for the sacred tasks that await your hands. Your journey has led you here, where the lies and schemes that once held you captive now lie exposed at your feet. You were marked by heaven, and they recognized your truth long before you allowed yourself to feel worthy. Now, stand tall in your revelation. No longer will you shrink to accommodate their fear or dim your radiance to spare their discomfort. Subscribe if you haven't yet, like this video, and comment "I am chosen" to let this message anchor in your soul. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Thank you to all supporting members. Your belief fuels this mission. For full prophetic revelations daily, join the membership via the link in the description. Your spiritual path deserves more than fragments. Step into the full light. And if this message moved you deeply, consider tapping the super thanks button to support the mission. Every super thanks fuels the light we're spreading together. Rise, chosen one. Your presence has always been dangerous to the darkness.